wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Jess Hilarious, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
Yes, indeed.
Bakari Sellers. Welcome.
What's going
Welcome
on?
back.
What's up? I'm glad to be back, man.
How you feeling?
Man, I feel really good. More blessed than I deserve, man.
I like that hoodie right there.
Yeah, official. You know, we got to represent our girls, man. Shout out to Don Staley. Shout out to Camilla Cardoza. My Lady Gamecocks, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You've been on the Lady Gamecocks, for a long time, right?
Yeah.
My wife went to USC, so I have too. But what made you start supporting the Lady Gamecocks so much?
Coach Staley.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe in her. She's a good friend of mine. She's like a sister or aunt. She keeps it real with you. If my daughters can grow up and be like Coach Staley, I think that they would be amazing women. I mean, what she does for the community, I don't think there's a woman who's contributed more to basketball, sport, black womanhood than Coach Staley. And I just appreciate her. Have y'all had her up here yet?
Yeah,
she came in.
Okay,
Don
for
came
sure.
in a few years ago.
We got to get her back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We 3 championships in now.
That's right.
Your new book, The Moment.
Yes.
Okay, is your thoughts on the race reckoning that wasn't? Why is it? Well, first of all, the title. Why the title? So
back in 2020, 21, when we were all kind of locked in our homes, and then we saw George Floyd be murdered on camera, I thought about why we saw what we saw. And we were in a pandemic, and so people were locked in their homes. Mm-hmm. We had the audacity of a 17-year-old black woman to take her phone out and videotape what happened. We had 9 minutes of a black man calling out for his mom with a knee on the back of his neck. Mm-hmm. And the world could not turn away. Mm-hmm. And then everybody came out in the streets around the world. And it took all of that just for us to have accountability. Not justice, but accountability. Justice is George Floyd still being here. Mm-hmm. And at that point, maybe it's my youthful naivete, but at that point, I thought that maybe the world was changing. Maybe we were starting to understand the plight and pain of being black in this country. And maybe we were actually having that racial reckoning. You know, those were the conversations we were having. And then shit changed and we went backwards. I mean, we have literally since that point when I thought we were making that change, we have been going backwards. Over 1,600 books banned. You see what's happening with the attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion. You see the abortion bill in Arizona from the 1800s. And so, you know, I wrote this book about that moment. I was on TV with Felonious Floyd, who spoke before me. And Charlamagne knows this. I'm real emotional. I cry all the time. But he was on the segment before me, and I was on with Dante Stallworth. And I was in my home, with my beard and everything, pajama pants on. That's when we were still doing TV from laptops. And I began to think about my kids and what was I going to tell my black kids listening to Felonious Floyd just speak.
Well, what made you? That's a great point you brought up about how everybody thought things were going to change. What made you have more audacity of hope? The George Floyd situation or Barack Obama being elected?
Barack Obama being elected, I thought was a moment in time because we had gone so far. I remember saying, and I had these conversations. I remember being on call with people like Dick Harpootlian and Michelle Obama when it wasn't many of us who supported the president of the United States, Anton Gunn in South Carolina. Then Senator Barack Obama. And there were fears about Barack Obama. One, we didn't think white vote would vote for him. Mm-hmm. That's why Iowa was so important. When he won Iowa, we were like, oh, white people will vote for this black man. Mm-hmm. And number two, my father would bring it up all the time. We were afraid that they were going to kill him. I mean, older black folk had a legit concern that Barack Obama was going to be assassinated. And the reason being is because it came from a valid place. They had seen all their heroes
get killed,
become martyrs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that was a legitimate concern. And so Barack Obama gave me a lot of hope when he got elected. The death of George Floyd was something that it was a moment that we missed. It was a surreal moment, and being able to meet the family and see how the world kind of embraced his daughter. And you know, God works in mysterious ways because he always uses somebody that you would not imagine to bring people together. Mm-hmm. And nobody would imagine that the person or the vessel he would use would be George Floyd, and he did. I write about that, but I was excited, but I was more let down, not by George Floyd, of course, or his family, but by the way people reacted to it, or the white lash, to steal a word from Van Jones.
Now, you just mentioned, you said things went backwards, right? Why do you think things went backwards? Because you had, like you said, so many people out in the street, and it just wasn't black people. It was white people, Asian people, Jewish people. It didn't matter. Everybody was out there protesting. Why do you think things went in reverse?
There are a lot of white people in this country that are afraid of the browning of America. Tucker, I talk about this in the book, how we've monetized racism and xenophobia. And Tucker did an entire segment on nightly news in front of millions of people talking about the Great Replacement theory, which is just a white nationalist racist theory. And you begin to see that fear bubble up. I mean, you have people like Clay Travis, you have Ben Shapiro, you have Candace Owens. I mean, you even have black folk who prop up this type of ignorance and type of white supremacy thought. And I just think that there was a lot of fear in this country, and you saw that rise to the top, and that fear has made its way into policy. Whether or not you're talking about the Supreme Court and the attacks on DEI, the attacks on wokeness, we invented. We used to call people, woke because you were, sleeping with your eyes open, right? Mm-hmm. You were just trying to see what the man was doing, and now they've taken that and bastardized it and turned it into something that I don't even know what it means anymore. But I think that fear is palpable amongst a lot of folk, and they've monetized that. I mean, a lot of the echo chamber that is Fox News are people who they're afraid of brown folk, they're afraid of black folk, they're afraid of migrants. I mean, it's fear.
Donald Trump was white last too, and do you think that Democrats might have did themselves a disservice by running a woman right after a black man? Because the black man scared the hell out of them too, but that woman getting close to the presidency scared the hell out of them.
Let me be extremely clear. There was no person more qualified to run for president of the United States in the history of this country than Hillary Rodham Clinton. Shout out! I know she's listening to the Breakfast Club this morning, so shout out to the Madam Secretary.
But this is a sexist country.
There was a lot of misogyny involved in it, and I get in trouble with the dark side. Particularly, there are a lot of black men who get mad at me on the interwebs, etc. When I talk about there was a lot of misogyny involved in that 2016 election. There were a lot of people who just didn't feel like a woman could be president, should be president, could serve.
And a lot of them were white women who felt that way.
And there were a lot of white women let us down in that election. Right. If we're gonna be 100% honest, and it was wild to see that a lot of white women felt some type of way. Hillary Clinton was a death by 1,000 cuts. Mm-hmm. I mean, they had been ostracizing and beating Hillary Clinton up since 1988, just for little things. And so I don't think we made a mistake. Very rarely do we elect the most qualified person in our party, and we did that. And so she just got beat. I mean, there was some people have to look back at that election. Nothing happens in a vacuum. I remember they were like, she didn't go to Wisconsin. Well, she was scheduled to go to Wisconsin. She was going, I think, University of Wisconsin, Green Bay with Barack Obama. They were going to have a big rally. What happened? The Post nightclub shooting. So they canceled the rally. Yeah. Right? Nothing happens in a vacuum. And so, that race, that blew my mind. I was actually in D.C. I was hosting a party at Park in D.C. And I told them the only way we would host it is if it was a watch party, is if my daughter could come. She was 12. So they let me sneak my 12-year-old daughter in the park, and we were watching the results come in. And it got bad quick.
Sure, that's what we was at. We was at the Jacobs. The
Javits. She invited me to the Javits Center.
We had our daughters there thinking we about to see the first woman president.
We had our spouses. We were all there. My daughter was there.
Listen, when Florida happened, I was like, this is different. Mm-hmm. And then the blue wall chipped away. I mean, I remember that. I was depressed. I went to bed early.
No, you say something about drinking. What'd you say?
I drink myself through. Because I tell people back in the day, my saying was when I had good days, I drink Jameson. When I had bad days, I drink Jameson. But now I drink tequila. But I was out of it. My wife was like, you know how you get drunk and snore? You got that drunk snore, mouth open? Mm-hmm. By 2:00, I was done. I couldn't watch it no more, man. It was sad.
With that said, Hillary doesn't get in the White House. So when something happens like a George Floyd, can you have a true racial reckoning if you don't have people in positions of power, elected officials?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question.
That are supporting that?
That's a good question. I don't think we have, for even white liberals. In my book, I talk about this a lot. We have a lot of race-specific problems in this country, and they pass a lot of race-neutral legislation. Mm-hmm. For example, PPP loans, et cetera, during COVID relief. They passed COVID relief under the auspices of rising tides lift all boats. But what do we know? Who was directly affected the most by COVID? Black people. Absolutely. Black people and Native Americans died at higher rates than anybody else, and we lost more businesses during COVID than anybody else. But the policies weren't directed towards us specifically. And so you know how many black folk in this country are unbanked? Just don't have a bank account. Mm. These individuals are suffering, dying and suffering, and they don't have a bank account. You can't get a PPP loan without a bank account, right? And so when you begin to think about this, you're right. We did not have people in place who think logically about having these race-specific policy solutions. And when that, rising tides don't lift our boats. What happens if I have a dinghy? What happens if I have a hole in my boat, right? What happens if I can't get off the dock? And so we don't have enough people in power who think like that. That's a real good question, Charlamagne.
I was going to say in the introduction in your book, and this is something that we spoke about a lot up here, you talk about how you feel when celebrities don't get involved.
Yeah.
And let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, me and my dad had this conversation, and it starts because of a picture in my book. Well, a picture that I talk about in my book. My dad got arrested up here in front of the South African embassy. He was protesting apartheid, and he was with Jim Foreman, and he was with John Lewis. And the people who bailed my dad and them out was Sidney Poitier and Harry Belafonte, right? And there was such a cross section during that time between celebrity, pop culture, entertainment, and grassroots activism. And my dad believes there should be more of that today. And I articulate that there is. People don't know the work you do, Charlamagne. People don't know the work. They don't know Beyonce and Jay-Z bailed out all the protesters down in Baton Rouge when Alton Sterling got killed. But his argument is that there should be more. His argument is that, the work, and he used Kanye West, right? He said Kanye West could do that much more for the black community. And I said, Dad, Kanye West just gone. He been gone, right? I mean, I said it on CNN. I got in trouble for it, but I said Kanye West is what happened. What happens when Negroes don't read, right? But he believes there should be more. I think there are a lot of people who get involved. We don't know the work they do, but I compare it to the black church as well. There's just not enough. There are not enough people with means who are putting their shoulder to the wheel to help us get out the ditch. That's their prerogative. If you want to have 2 Teslas and live behind a gated community or in a gated community, that's fine. But, I think, this ministry isn't for everybody. I think that you have to be decently selfless. And there are a lot of where we're from, I'm sure where you're from too, but there are a lot of black folk who are suffering. There are a lot of black folk in poverty. There are a lot of black folk who don't have access to quality health care.
That's right.
There are a lot of black folk who don't have any opportunity. I mean, we still have in our communities first generation college students. Like we literally have people who are still going to college today who it's their first generation in their family. All you got to do is go to a high school graduation. That's why we act the ass.
That's right.
The most non-listened to statement in the history of America is please hold your applause until all the names have been called. Don't nobody listen to that.
Nope.
And so we just have so many problems, and I think that there is we don't have a lot of wealth, but I think that we have more wealth than we've ever had, and there's an opportunity for us to contribite more.
What's the number in South Carolina? What do they say? Almost 50% of all people don't have their basic necessities.
Oh yeah, I mean, and tying back into COVID, this is what I'm talking about. We missed a moment. So people ask Bakari, why did black people die at a higher rate from COVID than anybody else? Well, in Denmark, for example, I lived in a food desert, which means you can't go 1 or 2 miles and have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. Our hospital shut down. We didn't expand Medicaid, et cetera. Our hospital shut down. Our drinking water is not clean. All right. So you have all of these things. That means you have high instances of preventable diseases, diabetes, heart, cardiovascular disease, et cetera. You can't get quality health care. And then you overlay a pandemic. It's no wonder we're dying at higher rates. But we never peel back the onion and ask those questions. And people ask, what is systemic racism? That there is systemic racism. Like, how do we fix those systems of injustice?
I wonder, did we miss a moment or did we just get pacified? Like, you had a lot of these corporations do all of these corporate DEI programs. You had, and it was an election year, so people thought, hey, we can just vote the change we wanted. Like, did we miss a moment or did we just get pacified?
It was a combination of both. Trump put his name on them checks.
Yeah.
Which was a brilliant political move.
Absolutely.
So what was them checks? $1,600, I think.
$1,200, I think.
$1,200. I think it was another $600 too or something, wasn't it?
It was two $1,200 checks.
I can't remember. Yeah.
And then Biden did one, but nobody remembers that one.
And so, I just, I think that we got pacified and I think we missed a moment. But people were going through so much too. Like I talk about Garland Gilchrist, who's dope. Garland is the lieutenant governor of the great state of Michigan. And I think it was 26 people he lost in his life, in his orbit. I mean, there's a lot of death in black communities. And so I think we were trying to survive, that is my hope. I have 2 hopes in life. One is that we no longer have to be in a position where we're trying to survive all the time. There are so many people out here working today who listening to this show, truck drivers listening to this show who are trying to survive, make ends meet.
Juror number 5 in the Trump trial.
I'm trying to get us to thrive.
Yeah.
I want to get us in a position where we're having an abundance, excess. I want us to all be able to live like DJ Envy, right? That's what I want to. Live like we light skin.
I'm very modest. Did you hear about jury number 5?
Hold on, real quick. How do you get the moment back though? Because I feel like
that's my number 2 thing. Yeah. And so the problem for us is that, like, in order for us to have change in this country, the price is so high for black folk. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to lower that price. Like, in order for us to have the Voting Rights Act and Civil Rights Act, we had to have the Edmund Pettus Bridge. People had to see that brutality with their eyes. In order for us to even talk about criminal justice reform, we had to watch George Floyd die. Mm-hmm. In order for us to take the Confederate flag down in South Carolina, 9 people had to die. There's so much pain and sacrifice that goes with being black in this country just so that you can have a modicum of change. Like, that price is too damn high. And nothing they're saying up here in New York, the rent too damn high.
Rent too damn high, yeah.
So for black folk, the price of change is too damn high. So I'm trying to lower that price. And that's hard as hell. Shout out to juror number 5. Who was that?
You heard about juror number 5 on the Trump trial. When they interviewed her, they said that she gets her news from TikTok.
She gets her news from TikTok and Google. And she said that she listens to inspirational podcasts in the Breakfast Club. So we were trying to figure out from a legal standpoint, why is that information necessary?
So during voir dire, mm-hmm. you get to ask a number of questions, and those mm-hmm. questions have to be, you put your questions forth, the defense puts their questions forth, and then the judge reviews them and he puts together a list of questions. And so I usually ask questions like, are you a member of the NRA? Like, what bumper stickers do you have? You know how much you can tell about a person from their bumper stickers? Like, don't tread on me. You know, the blue, black bumper stickers, like the law enforcement bumper stickers.
Yeah, honk if you horny.
Yeah.
That'd be funny.
Well, that's probably somebody you want on your jury, right?
Yeah.
You know, honk if you horny.
Hampton University bumper sticker.
Yeah, or who you voted for. Mm-hmm. You know, if I'm in a criminal trial, I want to know, did you contribute to, what is it, Moms Against Drunk Driving?
Mm-hmm.
MAD, mm-hmm. right? Because that means that you just have this bit that you may not give my client that type of grace. And so you're trying to figure out the psychology of the juror by asking him that. And then there was one juror I saw, I didn't even see the Breakfast Club, but there was one juror I saw that only gets their news from Truth Social.
Really? They can't be a juror then.
Yeah, they made it.
They made it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
This trial is crazy.
How do you think it's going to play out?
Oh, he's going to be found guilty. I mean, he's going to be found guilty in this trial. He's going to be found guilty in the 2 criminal trials, federal criminal trials. He's not going to go to prison. It's going to be a bit of irony that he's going to be a convicted felon, unable to vote for himself, but still could be president of the United States.
Do you think he's going to win?
No.
Why not?
I don't think he's going to win.
Not what you hope.
No, I don't think. I mean, I'm looking at the fundamentals. Charlamagne and I, shout out Jared too, we have these conversations all the time. Mm-hmm. But I think the fundamentals are, the biggest threat to Joe Biden is not Donald Trump. It's not RFK. It's not Cornel West. It's the couch.
That's right.
Like, people will stay home.
That's right.
And we have to get out of this subject verb Donald Trump. Like, people are tired of that. They know he has 5 kids by 3 baby mamas, right? They know he's uncouth. They know that he's been found guilty of rape or whatever he was found guilty of in a civil matter. They know he has 91 felony counts and all that other stuff.
And they don't care.
They don't care. But also, you know, part of it is we have to, you know, we talk about this often. People say, is your life better now than it was 4 years ago? And people usually say, you know, my life was better then. What we've realized is that when they say that, when they answer the question that way, they're not talking about necessarily because Donald Trump made it that way. They're talking about their life was better before COVID and still haven't bounced back. I think that Michigan is going to be very important, but I do believe that you're starting to see black and brown voters come back to Joe Biden and wake up. People are paying attention. And I think that Donald Trump has a very, a low ceiling and a high floor. So he's going to be in the low 40s, period. I mean, that's just where he's going to live. He's going to live at 40%, 42%. And I think that Joe Biden can eclipse that. I don't necessarily want to see a debate, but I think you're going to see one anyway.
Are you afraid of what's happening on college campuses? Are you afraid of young college kids who feel like they hate Joe Biden's handling of Palestine, Israel?
Look,
they're out here screaming at for Gaza. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think what's going on in college campuses, shout out to Jelani Cobb over at Columbia. He's the dean of the School of Journalism over there. They got their hands full. I mean, I also think, though, we have the rise of anti-Semitism that we've seen in this country is palpable. It's something that we have to quell and has no place in society. You know, for me, on college campuses, you believe college campuses to be a place where you can exchange ideas. You believe college campuses to be a place where you can go and have just this kind of unvarnished opportunity to learn as much as possible. What you're seeing now on many of these campuses is unrecognizable. And, you know, I feel for those college students who feel as if they're being persecuted, who are getting assaulted on that campus. There's no place for that. In terms of the way that plays out in an election, it's do they vote even? It just from a pure, practical standpoint. Are we talking about people who are voters right now? And I think that they're going to be energized. I don't see how anybody who has some level of empathy or sympathy for what's happening in Gaza voting for Donald Trump.
But to your point, they
might stay home. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. They may stay home. And that if there is a cessation of fire between now and the election, which I believe there'll be, I think Joe Biden will be in a much better place.
Well, why is this so hard for this country to reckon with race? Just in general.
Because we've never dealt with the original sin of this country. I mean, we've never dealt with, or one of the two original sins. Shout out to my Native American friends and followers. But we never dealt with the issue of slavery. Like this country, I mean, we built this country for free. Like we were raped, pillaged. They took everything from us, and they act like that was like we never dealt with that. And then we had 100 years of oppression and Jim Crow. Like we literally have not been a republic until the Voting Rights Act in the mid 1960s.
Dang.
I mean, think about that. People act like we haven't had full right in this country until 1960s. And that we're still fighting for that. And so we've never really dealt with that issue. And now one of the quotes I write in this book is that, for a lot of people, including a lot of white folk that we love, that we talk to, that are our friends, equality feels like oppression to them. And that's the definition of white supremacy. And so we've never dealt with it. I just don't want more people to have to die. And going back to college campuses, look, we have to do a couple of things. We have to root out anti-Semitism at its root. We also do not need Eric Adams in NYPD or Kathy Hochul and the National Guard on college campuses. That shit don't mix, okay? My dad was shot by law enforcement when they were brought on campuses in 1968. We had Kent State. We had Jackson State. Just let's figure out a way to have some constructive conversations with students. These outside groups, arrest them. Whoever's from the outside infiltrating these pro-Hamas groups, arrest them, put them under the jail. But college students, let's figure out a way to have some dialogue.
You got the chapter White Terror Part 2, where you talk about legal genocide, and you talk about how you and Ben Crump received so many threats that y'all face for the work that you do. So it makes me wonder, is the work worth it?
And shout out to Harry Daniels, too, who worked with us on that case, and Andrew Brown. Is the work worth it? I have a job that I wish didn't exist. I'm working with a family right now in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Ricky Cobb. Yeah, he was gunned down by Minnesota State Police. And just seeing the pain these families go through. I mean, when you do this work, you have to be not only their lawyer, but you have to be their psychologist, psychiatrist, their friend. I mean, we have these phone conversations or meetings where we just you have to let them grieve. You have to let them get it out because they want justice. I mean, they're part of a fraternity sorority. You never want that knock, but you never want your loved one to be a hashtag. But you never know when it's going to happen. And the threats we get. I mean, Ben, I pray for Ben all the time. Ben is one of the most complicated, simple people you'll ever meet in your life. Like every Sunday he's in church with his family. When we travel, he goes shopping at Walmart, gets his shirt, dress pants. Like when we go out to restaurants, he get fried shrimp or just a cheeseburger. Well done.
Well done.
Nah, we could be at Papa though. We could be
always judging people by how they eat.
Yeah. First of all, some of y'all need to be judged.
He just say well done though. He just said cheeseburger. Well done.
I mean, I gotta. Some of y'all medium. Well some done. Of y'all got some.
That must bother you. Might get his burger well done.
Yes, it does. I mean, some of y'all got some eating habits that should be judged, right? I'm just saying. But he's a good dude, man, and he don't get nearly the credit for the work that he does. And so shout out Ben and people like Harry Daniels, people who do this work. And who do it well.
Is it true that y'all aren't allowed to talk to media about y'all cases?
So sometimes, like when the case is filed, you have to be really careful about the things you say. And then when cases settle, usually there's some level of confidentiality that's involved around like what numbers were going back and forth. But you can talk about the cases pretty free. I talk about the Andrew Brown case in there.
Gotcha.
Now, also, I wonder, you wrote a letter to your son, Dear Story.
Yeah, for sure.
Why'd you want to write that, and how difficult was it to write that?
It was also about his namesake, though.
Yeah. Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture. So this book, we talk about black men a lot. We talk about the untapped voting power of black men. And I wrote this letter to Stokely because I wanted him to know and be very proud of who he is. I wanted him to know who his grandfathers were, right? The strength of his grandfathers and his grandparents. I wanted him to know the power that his dad holds and his grandfather holds. And I wanted him to know who Stokely Carmichael was. And Stokely was my dad's best friend. You know, Stokely was there when my daddy got out of jail. You know, your best friend is there when you get out of prison, right? And so he was there for him then. And I just wanted him to know, I wanted him to feel when he reads those words that I don't want to say king, we overuse that, but I wanted him to be a very, very proud black man when he reads that. And I wanted fathers, when they read that, to be able to realize that we have to talk to our sons like this. And, you know, even kids we don't birth, there are a lot of black men running around in our communities that don't have fathers. And we have to be willing to wrap our arms around them as well. And so it wasn't hard to write. It was something I wanted to do. So it actually flowed pretty freely.
Now, you said faith and fear cannot coexist.
Yeah.
Break that down.
Yeah, it's tough for me because I have anxiety that's worse than most people know. Like I have general anxiety disorder. So I'm in therapy once every 2 weeks just to deal with it. Ayala Vanzant says that it's when my thoughts are in my head without adult supervision, right? And so for me, you're not supposed to be faithful with fear. And that Bishop Jakes talks to me about that all the time. Sometimes you just have to literally let go and let God. That's when my vices get the best of me sometimes, when you try to let go. That's when you find yourself in the Shake'ems. That's when the African American performing arts centers if you like black strip clubs, or ballets if you like white strip clubs. And that's when you find yourself in a bottle of Casamigos or Clase Azul or whatever it is.
Listen, man, healing is healing. Bakari.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Self-care is self-care.
Those are some of the best therapists in the world.
Yes.
Shout out the city of Tampa, Atlanta. some of the best therapists in the world. Some of the best therapists in the world.
Self-care, man.
Yeah. But and so I just feel like you have to be faithful. And I'm working on rooting out that fear. I ain't there yet. Because, you know, fear can become paralyzing. You'll be so afraid of what's outside, you stay indoors. Right. You know, and so you have to be willing to combat that stuff. And so shout out to Bishop Jakes. He's one of the great heroes of our time.
Love that guy. What is the importance of SNCC, man? I don't hear people talk about that enough. And what could black people today learn from SNCC?
SNCC was about us. It was about self-empowerment. Black people today could learn that if we're gonna have any change, it does not start at 1600 Pennsylvania. It starts locally. It starts in your precincts. It starts in your churches. SNCC was amazing because they went to places like Philadelphia, Mississippi, where Goodman, Sherman, and Cheney were lynched and thrown in a ravine. They met people where they were. They stayed in their homes. They built community. They empowered communities. And my dad was one of the members of SNCC. Shout out to Judy Richardson, you know, Marion Barry, Julian Bond, you know, all of these great heroes and heroines that we just don't know enough about. And so I love them. I dedicated that book to the founders of SNCC. And it starts locally. I mean, here y'all got arguably one of the worst mayors in the United States of America. And so y'all got a lot of work to do.
Damn, Eric Adams.
Yeah, Eric is terrible.
Why do you think he's so bad?
Eric Adams comes from a bent in which he is relatively old school, which is fine. But he frames his discussion as if he is the sole arbiter of what's right and what's wrong. He doesn't believe in sourcing opinions that are not his own. He lives in a decently an echo chamber, and he believes law enforcement to be the end all be all. And I know that crime has been a problem throughout most major cities. We've seen crime decreasing, but it takes a community aspect. Eric is somebody who wants to be a celebrity. You know, it's hard to be a public servant and a celebrity. Those things don't really mesh. Barack Obama has people believing you can do both.
But he was natural.
He was natural.
Yeah.
Eric is kind of best suited to be a deacon. And, you know, ain't nothing wrong with that. But I don't know how many deacons you're going to elect to be mayor of the largest city in the United States. And so, I mean, it is what it is. But, you know, a couple years, you get to replace them.
What do you think about the crime problem in these cities? Because, you know,
so crime, you have to look at it holistically, though, right?
A lot of people say is some of the major problems is the bail reform, that a lot of these criminals are repeat offenders, that they're not staying in long enough, and they're coming out and they're doing the same crime. I think last week, a gentleman that punched a woman in the face came out and then punched a 6-year-old girl in the face.
Yeah, you got to lock them up, right? I tell people all the time, like, my mom and dad, they don't want fewer police. They want better police, right? I actually think you should pay police more. because you pay for what you get, right? If you want quality people, I think the police should go through psychological evaluations, not only when you get hired, but every couple of years, because it's a stressful job. So you don't need a nut getting hired to a stressful job. And so, but you have to look at crime holistically. Like right now, for a long period of time, the reason we saw crime rates go up is because people were hungry. And if they don't have food, they're going to come take yours.
That's right.
Right? If they don't have a job, they're going to get it by any means possible. It's a lot of hustling going on. The price of the brick went up exponentially. I do criminal defense work. I was amazed by how much people had to pay for a brick. I mean,
how much is a brick?
Right now? I don't want to tell you because I feel like I might know too much.
What you mean? You're a lawyer. You're an attorney.
Yeah, no. So right now, my partner's telling me they were paying $45.50.
God damn, for a key?
Yeah.
I thought Jeezy said 17.5. Didn't he?
That was a long time ago.
That wasn't even true. I don't believe.
Yeah, I mean, a decent price for a long period of time was 35, 30, 35.
They were 17. We all should have been selling dope back then.
You know how much money you can make off 17.5?
All right, guys. All right.
What do you think about Mayor Adams saying it's an attack on black mayors across the country? He was here on Breakfast Club, and he said that it was an attack. It's an attack on black mayors all across the country.
It is, but he's like, if you talk about black mayors, I mean, I don't think he's in the top 10. I mean, you got people who doing great work. Andre Dickens, Atlanta, great work. Shout out Andre. You got the mayor of Birmingham, my good friend Randall Wolfen. You got the mayor of Little Rock, Frank Scott. You got the mayor of Charlotte, Vi Lyles, right? You got London Bree, got her hands full out there in San Francisco. She working hard every single day. So, I mean, look, there is
Ross Barack and Newark.
Oh, Ross Barack. Oh, and I forgot my homeboy down in Jackson, Mississippi. Chokwe Lumumba. So you got people, and I hope Ross elevates. Karen Bass.
Yeah.
Oh, Karen Bass is dope, and she has her hands full in L.A. You got all these people that are better than Eric, but there is an attack on black mayors.
You don't like Eric, huh?
Nah.
I can tell.
No, I mean, but people I don't like, they know it, and
So how does it get personal between y'all though?
It's not personal.
Okay.
No, I am constructively criticizing the job that he does.
Gotcha.
I do the same thing in the book. I talk about Jason Whitlock. I talk about Stephen A. Smith. I talk about Ice Cube, and I don't know him to dislike him personally.
But what do you say about Stephen A. Smith?
I think that Stephen A. Smith, I think that he appreciates the white gaze. And I think that he's made him
the white gaze.
What's wrong with appreciating the white LGBTQ community?
I didn't say G-A-Z-E.
Oh,
gaze.
Did it sound like he said gaze? Did it sound like he said that?
Boy,
what's wrong with the white
gaze? G-A-Z-E.
I'm glad you cleared that up.
Yeah, I was like,
what he was saying.
But nah, he piles around with the Sean Hannitys and Tucker Carlsons of the world. He gives them their platform. Just last week he's talking about how when Donald Trump says that black folk find it relatable that he's going through his prosecution, I think that his anti-intellectualism, Stephen A. Smith, confused that persecution with prosecution. Like you cannot compare the plight of my father, who got wrongfully arrested, went to trial, went to prison, right? That is a persecution to the plight of Donald Trump.
Shot at.
Shot. Not even shot at. Shot.
Yes.
Right. So
you
can't compare that. And I think that he talks loudly, and I think he comes from just a place of anti-intellectualism where he doesn't know, and I think that he's used as a conduit for white supremacy, particularly in these echo chambers. And what happens is white conservatives are able to be like, when you say dumb stuff like, black people find it relatable that Donald Trump is indicted, right? Mm-hmm. First of all, it perpetuates stereotypes that we're hyper-criminalized, et cetera. But when you say that, white folk now look at you and be like, aha, there's even a Negro that says that too. Mm-hmm. And he's just, he's kind of a useful idiot when it comes to things like that. Mm-hmm. Now, I disagree with his sports takes all the time, right? But that is what it is. But the stakes are too high for that level of ignorance. And so, Jason Whitlock is a different animal. I think Jason Whitlock, Ice Cube, Stephen A. Smith are all in different lanes. I don't want people to think they're the same, but I do think they contribute to an erosion of our culture and particularly the success thereof.
I don't like the generalization of when they ask those questions. Like if somebody asked Stephen A. Smith that, he shouldn't accept it. He should say, I can't speak for all black people.
I mean, but that's anti-intellectualism. Mm-hmm. And that's also like a weird level of confidence because he appreciated the question. So he was like, I'm an arbiter of all things that are black. Let me tell you how black folks feel. But I mean, he used to hang out like Sheriff David Clark. I mean, you heard what he said about, remember back in 2017, you gave him Donkey of the Day in 2017, if I'm not mistaken, 2017, 2018. Because he was like, back when J.R. Smith and the players were wearing hoodies, he said that they shouldn't wear hoodies because it would remind white people of Trayvon Martin. Like, what are we talking about? I mean, this isn't the first time we've been down this path with him. And so, it's about accountability in our community. So I just called him out.
Ice Cube?
So I think Ice Cube pops his head up when he needs attention. The most recent thing we saw was Caitlin Clark, for example, right? Offering Caitlin Clark $5 million. One, he ain't got $5 million to pay Caitlin Clark. Two, Caitlin Clark said she found out about the offer the same time everybody else found out about the offer, right? On Twitter. So it wasn't even a real thing. And three, you got black women like Asia Wilson who've been dominating for a long time. Throw her $500,000, right? $250. Then we had the black agenda, which he came up with himself, I guess. And it wasn't clear. It didn't articulate our needs. He had the ability to talk to black women in particular who were reaching out to him. He shut them down. And so I just want people to be held accountable like people hold me accountable. And if you have a problem with what I do, I mean, I'll take the criticism and be willing to move forward. Either be a part of the solution or get out the way. So
how do you use that level of celebrity, like an Ice Cube, like a Stephen A. Smith? How do you use that to the benefit?
I mean, look at people like John Legend. Look at people like Kerry Washington. Look at people who are in their lane, who are inquisitive, who want to learn more. Look at Charlamagne.
People hate me.
But let me ask you a question about Charlamagne. Like,
people do hate you, but the problem
with that sometimes I feel like people forget the good that people do, and when they do something that's a misstep, they take that misstep down the road.
Well,
like,
I mean, they do that.
What did you think about the Breakfast Club having Candace Owens on there?
That was a decision. but I don't
take
mind
Charlamagne out for being your friend.
No. I don't mind you having Candace Owens on if you're holding her accountable, right? I think the problem with Candace Owens is that she went on this tour to be hugged by black personalities, and she wanted to be re-engaged in the black community because she's been ostracized because of her anti-Semitism from her home. And I don't have any use for Candace Owens. I offered to debate her. She wanted to debate me, offer me $100,000 to debate her. I said, I'll do it. Just do it on the HBCU campus. It was crickets, right? And so you just have to know. I don't want you guys to be played because somebody wants to re-engage or find a new place in our community and find a new place in our home.
Yeah, I don't even think she was trying to do that. Like, Candace has been wanting to come on Breakfast Club for years. Like, I've talked to Candace 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
So it was just, to me, it was just, bring her up for have a conversation.
I mean, I don't think, I'm not somebody who believes in canceling people. I'm not somebody who believes that you should not have a conversation. But if you're going to have that conversation, you can't just give free rein. You got to be willing to push back on it. Like, Candace Owens is an anti-Semite. Like, period. Right? Candace Owens holds views and opinions that I believe are just antithetical to what it means to be black in this country. Candace Owens props up white supremacy. I mean, I think all of those things are fact. And I think if you want to have a conversation, but we can have it rooted in fact, then so be it.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because, I hear people like Candace Owens talk, and I'm saying to myself, I don't know if they're propping up white supremacy or if that is just another way that black people think, like especially black conservatives. And the reason I say that, especially with the Blexit thing, right?
Yeah,
they was like, yo, let's get people off of the Democratic plantation. They don't have to be conservative, but let's just start to get them to think independently. I don't know if that's necessarily propping up white supremacy.
I don't know. Candace is now in a way, Candace and Tucker are just in a weird, was 9/11 an inside job? Was the moon landing fake? Is the Holocaust real?
We know a lot of brothers that talk like that, though. We know a lot of black people who talk like that.
Look, and that is fine. And when you're in the barbershop, what you call them? Dumb as hell.
It depends. I don't know. I'm at the point right now. I'm like, I don't know what's what anymore. To be totally honest with you.
But there is reality, there is fact, and then there's not. And that Donald Trump has done a great job of just pushing back on our institutions, so people begin to question stuff, and it's nonsense. I mean, questioning is the Holocaust real is.
Oh, that's just ridiculous.
That is disrespectful too. I mean, that's about as bad as who said that we learned slavery was good.
Slavery was a choice.
Oh, slavery was a choice was
Kanye.
And then Ron DeSantis was, we learned a lot from slavery. There was benefits to it. I mean, those things are just.
So why does Kanye get so many passes?
From who?
From people in general.
Because he's talented.
Exactly. So like we pick and choose who we want to crucify. We pick and choose who we want to ostracize.
Well, I mean, can't nobody do 808s like Kanye.
See, but he's an anti.
I don't fuck with Kanye. I don't do Kanye West at all. Like I haven't for a very long period of time since College Dropout. I mean, I think
you're wearing Yeezys today though.
Who?
I'm just messing with you. I'm just messing with you.
Like, don't have the people going crazy on me.
Just messing with you.
I'm shout out to Puma. I got my suede Pumas on. No, I don't think people get a pass. I think they're with more talent, there's more grace, but I think that grace is worn out. Like Kanye don't have no home in the black community no more.
You think? I don't know about that one, Bakari.
I think he does. A lot of people still mess with Kanye.
He just had a number one album.
He just had a number one album, and that's the one.
But it just got dethroned by Drake.
Still though, he still had a number one. I don't know. I don't know. Like I said,
number one single.
Number one single.
Number one single.
And the number one single now is Push Ups.
No, he had a number one album. That
album number one album.
I thought it was number one single last week.
He had a number one single too.
No, it wasn't, because the number one single was Fortnite. I'm a Swiftie.
No, number one single
Carnival was number one.
Carnival.
A few weeks ago.
A few weeks ago. Because Taylor Swift replaced him, and then Drake just
album. Yeah.
And her songs charted. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just interesting.
Have y'all had Taylor Swift up here?
No, never. It's just interesting having conversations with
I was like, what's the never about?
Oh no, I mean like never. No, she's never been up here. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's just interesting having conversations with black people with different trains of thought, and I think sometimes we do ourselves a disservice by staying in our own echo chamber and just labeling people dumb because they think differently than we do.
No, Kanye West is dumb though. No, I agree. Some people who think differently than you is fine.
Yeah.
But Kanye West is dumb.
Dumb at certain subjects.
Yeah, like he is a genius.
Yeah.
He is a genius. He's brilliant. I think if you put him in a studio, there aren't many people who can compete with him. But I think when he is running for president of the United States, a lot of the things he says is dumb.
But I also feel like it's a lot of times it's who he's getting his information from. And
well, that's a certain level of individual responsibility too.
Correct.
Like, where are you getting your news from? Like, that is not a Democrat or Republican thing. Ain't nobody. That is a willful click on your part, or just a phone call you make to get your news from wherever you get it from. And so that is my, look, that is my like libertarian bent. That is individual responsibility at its finest.
Do you think the news is doing a poor job of amplifying and highlighting the things that the Biden administration gets right? Because it seems like all they do all day is talk about how bad Trump is. To your point, nobody cares about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to
on our television.
Yeah, I don't want to hear about Trump farting in court. I don't want to hear about him falling asleep. Right? I mean, like treat him like every other criminal defendant. Right? But yeah, you don't hear about what Joe Biden did for black farmers. You don't hear about the $7 billion for HBCUs. You don't hear about the fact that the number of black businesses, the share of black businesses between 2022 and 2019 has doubled, right? You don't hear about what he and Kamala Harris have done for African-American female mortality. You don't hear about the holdings or the writings, opinions of Ketanji Brown Jackson, who he put on the Supreme Court. You don't really hear enough about those things. And so is that the media's fault? Yes. Is that the White House's fault? Yes, right? And so there is a certain level of distrust. Kamala, Joe Biden are not the best messengers. People don't even really listen to Barack Obama like that anymore.
Nah, it's over.
Yeah. So, I mean, we got to find the people who are, I would argue that more people listen to y'all than listen to them. Right? And so, it's important that you have the right messengers out there meeting people where they are.
All right.
Well, they're gearing up to blame this election if Biden loses. They're gearing up to blame it on black men.
I know. I write about that. And, for a long period of time, you can't just show up and begin to talk to black men, at Labor Day. I think we have to do a better job of listening to black men, all of them, about the pain that they're feeling. It's hard. It's hard being a black man in this country because when you walk outside your doors, you're not loved. You have to live in this perpetual state of angst and anxiety because you don't know what's coming your way. You have to take care of your household. For me, I have a wife, I have 3 kids that I spend a great deal of my time in my own head making sure I can provide for them. You're making sure ends meet, the stresses that you deal with, the way people look at you, and the way you have to carry yourself, right? We live in a very toxic type of environment. And so I talk about all of those things, and we have to listen to the pain that black men are going through. Until we begin to open our ears and listen to that, you'll continue to see slippage. And a lot of black men will gravitate to the toxicity or the toxic masculinity that is Donald Trump. Black men who were voting for Donald Trump, I don't think it's great numbers, but they're voting for him because he looks tough. He talks hard, right? I mean, that's what it is. It's a personality. It's an entertainment factor. And we have to understand that, right? We have to understand where that comes from, and then you'll be able to attack it.
What's your hope for this book? What's the biggest takeaway you want people to get from the moment?
I want people to realize where we are and where we can go. And I want people to realize that, particularly as Black people, we have the ability to change our destination. I want, at the end of it, I talk about young people in this country. And I go to Applebee's a lot, all right? And the reason I go to Applebee's across from the VA on Garner's Ferry is because they pour liquor like it ain't their own. You know, they actually pour like they're supposed to. These fancy places, anyway. But I was talking to the bartender, and she told me she was born in 2000, and I was like, "Man, there's more." And I began to think about that. I was like, imagine a kid born in 2000. They've seen 9/11. They've seen a housing crisis, a financial crisis, election of the first Black president, Tea Party, re-election of the first Black president, Parkland, Fort Hood, Charleston massacre. They've seen a synagogue shooting. They've had the largest mass shooting in the history of the country in Las Vegas, Nevada. They've seen the election of Donald Trump. They've
an insurrection.
Insurrection. They've seen COVID. They've seen the precipice of World War III. They've seen Russia invade Ukraine, and they've done all of this under the auspices of social media, where it's like, you know, just the vitriol that is what it is, and they're still here. I mean, these young people are so dope. Your kids are amazing. I mean, that's why they need more grace. All of us have kids that are amazing because they're still here. I mean, y'all are worried that Envy worried he's gonna show up in the Freaknik documentary.
Definitely not. That was not my era. I was behind that era.
Though. Huh? That's a real fear that everybody should be concerned about. I don't have a problem with people being afraid about that.
So I'm just saying, these young people, they need grace, and I write that you know they give me hope, and there's a lot of hope to be had.
All right. Well, the book. New book, The Moment is out right now. Make sure you go pick it up.
And I want y'all to know he brought it right back to food with Applebee's.
He definitely
Food
did.
and liquor, you get the Bakari's heart, okay?
Food and liquor.
When Bakari first started talking about inflation, he was like, the whiting too damn high.
The whiting is too high. Man, my daddy went to Piggly Wiggly, man. That's how I knew it was real. He was like, we were just talking. He was like, man, you seen the price of whiting?
Well, it's Bakari Sellers. It's The Breakfast Club. Good morning.
Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.